Dr. Jake Thompson wiped the sweat from his forehead as he packed up his equipment for the day. The Nevada desert was brutal in September, but this remote research station was perfect for his work studying soil samples. As a scientist who specialized in alien life forms, Jake spent most of his days alone, searching for any signs that Earth might not be the only planet with living creatures. The sun was setting, painting the sky in beautiful orange and pink colors. Jake was about to head back to a small lab when something caught his eye in the distance. A strange glow was coming from behind a large rock formation about half a mile away. First he thought it might be other researchers with their equipment, but something felt different about this light. It wasn't the usual white glow from flashlights or camp lights. This was more like a soft blue shimmer, almost like moonlight but brighter. Jake's curiosity got the better of him. He grabbed his backpack and started walking toward the mysterious light. The desert was quiet, except for the sound of his boots crunching on the dry sand. As he got closer, he could see what looked like pieces of metal scattered around the area. His heart started beating faster. This wasn't normal desert debris. The metal pieces were smooth and had a weird shine to them that he had never seen before. When Jake reached the source of the light, his mouth dropped open. There was some kind of vehicle or craft partially buried in the sand. It was about the size of a small car, but shaped completely different from anything he had ever seen. The surface was smooth like glass, but seemed to pulse with that same blue light. Parts of it were cracked and broken, and strange symbols were carved into the side. Jake walked around the damaged craft, taking pictures with his phone. His scientific mind was racing with questions. What was this thing? Where did it come from? How did it get here? As he examined the wreckage more closely, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. There was what looked like a door on the side of the craft, and it was hanging open. Taking a deep breath, Jake approached the opening. He pulled out his flashlight and shined it inside. The interior was filled with more of those strange symbols and what looked like control panels. Everything was covered in a fine, glittering dust. But then Jake saw something that made him gasp. In the back corner of the craft, curled up in a small ball, was a figure. At first, Jake thought it might be a person who had been hurt in some kind of accident. But as he looked closer, he realized this wasn't any ordinary person. The figure had skin that glowed with a soft blue light, similar to the craft itself. Long silver hair covered most of the face, but Jake could see that the features were human-like, yet somehow different. To be breathing, but was clearly unconscious. Jake knew he should probably call the authorities right away. This was way beyond anything he was trained to handle. But something stopped him. Maybe it was his scientific curiosity, or maybe it was just basic human compassion. But he couldn't bring himself to leave this mysterious being alone in the desert. What if it was hurt? What if it needed help? He's looking around to make sure no one else was nearby. Jake made a decision that would change his life forever. He carefully lifted the unconscious figure from the craft. The being was surprisingly light, almost like it was made of something different than normal human flesh and bone. The skin felt warm but had a strange, smooth texture unlike anything Jake had ever touched. Carrying the mysterious person back to his lab took almost an hour. Jake had to stop several times to rest and to make sure the being was still breathing. The whole time, his mind was spinning with questions and concerns. What was he doing? Was this safe? What would happen when this person woke up? Jake's research station was basically a small building with a lab, a bedroom, and a kitchen. It was designed for one person to live alone while conducting experiments. Jake cleared off his examination table and gently placed the unconscious figure on it. Under the bright lights of his lab, he could see the being more clearly. The person appeared to be female and looked to be about the same age as Jake. Her skin really did glow with that soft blue light, and her hair was the color of liquid silver. She was wearing clothes that looked like they were made from the same material as the craft, smooth and shimmering. Most surprisingly, she looked almost human except for her unusual coloring and the fact that her ears were slightly pointed. Jake spent the next few hours setting up monitoring equipment to keep track of the being's vital signs. Her heartbeat was steady but slightly faster than a human's. Her breathing was normal, and and her body temperature was just a little bit cooler than what would be normal for a person. Everything suggested that she was alive and healthy, just unconscious. As the night wore on, Jake found himself unable to sleep. He kept checking on his mysterious visitor, making sure she was comfortable and safe. He had covered her with a blanket and dimmed the lights, hoping that would help her rest. But mostly, he just sat in a chair nearby, watching and waiting, wondering what would happen when she finally woke up. The next morning, Jake was drinking his coffee when he heard a soft sound from the lab. He rushed over to find that the being's eyes had opened. They were the most beautiful violet color he had ever seen, and they were looking right at him with a mixture of confusion and fear. Jake's heart was pounding as he looked into those amazing violet eyes. The being on his examination table was definitely awake now, and she was studying him just as carefully as he was studying her. For a moment, neither of them moved. Jake didn't want to scare her, and she seemed to be trying to figure out if he was dangerous. "Hi, Jake," said softly. "The way you might talk to a frightened animal. I'm Jake. I found you in the desert. You were hurt." The being tilted her head slightly, and Jake could see she didn't understand his words. She reached toward her waist and pulled out a small device that looked like a smooth, glowing stone. She touched it gently, and suddenly Jake heard a sweet, musical voice speaking in his language. "I am Zara," the voice said, though Jake could see her lips weren't moving in sync with the English words. "Thank you for helping me. Where am I?" Jake's eyes widened. This was actually happening. He was talking to someone from another world. "You're on Earth," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "In Nevada. That's in the United States. Your vehicle crashed in the desert." Zara sat up slowly, looking around the lab. "My ship," she said, and Jake could hear sadness in her translated voice. "It malfunctioned during my exploration. Mission. I was studying your planet from space when the power systems failed." "You're from space?" Jake asked, even though he already knew the answer. "From another planet?" Zara replied, touching the translation device again. "My home is very far from here, place you would call Kepler 44 to be. I was supposed to return 3 days ago." Jake felt a wave of sympathy for her. She was stranded, millions of miles away from home, with no way to contact her family or friends. "I'm sorry," he said. "Can your ship be repaired?" Zara was quiet for a moment. "Perhaps. But I will need time to assess the damage. And I must rest. The crash used much of my energy." Okay. Over the next 3 days, Jake learned amazing things about Zara and her world. She told him about her peaceful civilization, where people lived in harmony with nature and spent their time exploring the universe to learn about other forms of life. She explained that her species had been studying Earth for many years, but always from a distance, never making contact. Jake shared his own life with her too, told her about his work as a scientist, his fascination with the possibility of life on other planets, and how lonely it could be spending so much time alone in the desert. Zara listened with great interest, asking questions about human culture and customs. On the 3rd day, Jake noticed that Zara seemed uncomfortable. She kept shifting in her chair and touching her stomach. At first, he thought she might be hungry, so he offered her some of his food. But she politely declined, explaining that her people ate very different things than humans. "Are you okay?" Jake asked, noticing she seemed to be getting more restless. "You look like something is bothering you." Zara's blue skin seemed to glow a little brighter, which Jake had learned meant she was embarrassed. "I have biological need," she said through her translator, "but I do not understand your customs for such things." Jake realized what she meant and felt his own face turn red. "Oh, you need to use the bathroom, of course. I should have thought of that earlier." He led her to his small bathroom and tried to explain how human facilities worked. Zara looked confused by the toilet and the concept of waste disposal, but she nodded politely and went inside, closing the door behind her. Jake went back to his lab and tried to focus on his work, but he kept thinking about how strange this whole situation was. Here he was, giving bathroom instructions to an alien visitor. If anyone had told him this would happen a week ago, he would have thought they were crazy. After about 10 minutes, Jake heard an unusual sound from the bathroom. It wasn't anything he had ever heard before, like multiple small objects hitting porcelain. Then he heard what sounded like surprise in Zara's voice, though she was speaking in her own language. "Jake," she called out. "Could you help me? Is everything okay?" Jake asked through the door, worried that something might be wrong with the plumbing. "I believe so," Zara replied. "But there is something unusual." Jake waited outside the door until Zara emerged.
Ow.
She looked relieved, but also confused. "I am sorry," she said. "I think I may have broken something." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "Perhaps you should look," Zara suggested, pointing toward the bathroom. Jake stepped inside and looked at the toilet. His jaw dropped. Instead of normal waste, the bowl was filled with what looked like colorful stones. Beautiful sparkling gems of different colors. Red, blue, green, and clear ones that looked like diamonds. They were all perfectly formed and catching the light, like the most expensive jewelry he had ever seen. "What? What is this?" Jake stammered, staring at the incredible sight. Zara tilted her head, looking puzzled by his reaction. "These are waste products," she explained matter-of-factly. "This is normal for my people. Is it not normal for humans?" Jake couldn't speak for a moment. He just stared at the gems, his mind trying to process what he was seeing. "No," he finally managed to say. "This is definitely not normal for humans. This look like precious stones. Jewels." "Jewels?" Zara asked, unfamiliar with the word. Jake picked up one of the stones from the toilet. It felt real and heavy in his hand. "These are very valuable on Earth," he explained. "People pay lots of money for stones like these. They're used to make expensive jewelry." Zara looked even more confused. "But why would anyone pay money for waste products?" Was holding what might be a genuine emerald. His hands were shaking slightly as he examined it. "'Cause they're beautiful," he said, "and rare. Most humans never see gems like these in their whole lives." "How strange," Zara commented. "My world, everyone produces these. We consider them garbage." Jake looked at the toilet full of precious gems, then at Zara, who was treating this a miraculous event like it was completely ordinary. His life as a quiet scientist had just become infinitely more complicated. Jake couldn't sleep that night. He kept thinking about the gems sitting in a bowl on his lab table. After cleaning them carefully, he had examined each one under his microscope. They were real, not just real, but perfect. The emerald he had first picked up was flawless, with a deep green color that seemed to glow from within. The diamonds were crystal clear, and the rubies were the most beautiful red he had ever seen. Gosh! The next morning, Jake watched Zara eat her breakfast. She had explained that her people consumed what looked like small, colorful crystals that she carried in a pouch from her ship. They looked like rock candy, but they glowed softly with their own inner light. "Zara," Jake said, trying to sound casual, "can you tell me more about how your people... how your bodies work?" Zara looked up from her crystal meal. "What would you like to know?" "Well, yesterday's situation," Jake said, feeling awkward. "Said it was normal for your people. Can you explain how that works?" Zara nodded, seeming happy to share. "Of course, on my world we eat minerals from the ground. Our planet is rich with crystalline formations. Our bodies take what we need for nutrition and energy, then convert the excess into compressed mineral waste." Jake leaned forward, fascinated. "So you're saying your digestive system actually creates gems? If gems are what you call these waste products?" "Then yes," Zara replied. "Our bodies are very efficient. Nothing is truly wasted. The minerals we cannot use become these formations." Jake's mind was racing. "How often does this happen?" "Every few days, depending on how much we consume," Zara explained. "Why do you ask?" "You seem very interested in something that is quite ordinary." Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly in every direction. "Zara, I need to show you something." He went to his computer and pulled up images of jewelry stores, gem auctions, and expensive watches. At this, Zara studied the screen with curiosity. These are decorative items? Yes, but look at what they're made of, Jake said, pointing to the gems in the jewelry. These stones. They're the same as what you produced yesterday. People pay thousands of dollars for stones like these. Some of them cost more than I make in a year. Zara's violet eyes widened. Truly, but why? Because they're rare here, Jake explained. Most humans never see gems like these. They're found deep underground, and it takes expensive equipment, and lots of people to mine them. A single perfect diamond can cost more than a car. A car? Zara asked, unfamiliar with the term. Jake showed her pictures of cars and explained their cost. Then he showed her more pictures of expensive jewelry. That necklace there? It costs more than most people's houses. Zara stared at the screen in amazement. And these stones come from? Waste products of my people? Exactly, Jake said. What you consider garbage, we consider treasure. Over the next few hours, Jake conducted careful tests on the gems. He used every piece of equipment in his lab to analyze them. The results were incredible. Not only were they genuine, but they were of the highest quality he had ever seen. No inclusions, perfect clarity, and colors that were more vibrant than anything he had seen in museums. This is unbelievable, Jake muttered, examining a sapphire under his microscope. These are museum-quality gems. Each one is perfect. Zara watched him work with growing concern. Jake, you seem troubled by this discovery. Is there something wrong? Jake looked up from his microscope. Wrong? No, nothing's wrong. It's just ... This is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Do you realize what this means? I am afraid I do not understand, Zara said. Jake sat down across from her. Zara, if people on Earth knew about this, about what your people can do, it would change everything. The entire gem industry, the economy, everything. Would that be good or bad? Zara asked innocently. Jake thought about that for a moment. I don't know. It could be wonderful, or it could be terrible. Sometimes when humans discover something valuable, they don't always make good choices about it. As the day went on, Jake found himself torn. Between excitement and worry, the scientist in him was thrilled by this discovery. This was the kind of find that could make him famous, win him awards, change the course of human understanding about life in the universe. But another part of him was concerned about what would happen to Zara and her people if this information got out. Tell me about your home, Jake said that evening, as they sat together in his lab. What are your people like? Zara's face lit up. They are peaceful and kind. We spend our time learning, exploring, and creating beautiful things. We have no wars, no violence. Everyone works together for the good of all. Your planet, is it safe? Very safe, Zara said. We have no dangerous animals, no natural disasters. The biggest excitement in most people's lives is when explorers like me return with stories of new worlds. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Zara, what would happen if people from Earth came to your planet? We would welcome them, Zara said with a smile. We always enjoy meeting new forms of life. We would share our knowledge and learn from them. Jake realized that Zara had no idea how dangerous that could be. Her people's innocence and the valuable nature of what they produced could make them targets for exploitation. He thought about governments and corporations that might want to control or harvest this ability. The idea made him feel sick. Jake, you look upset, Zara observed. Have I said something wrong? No, Jake said quickly. I'm just thinking about things. Zara, when you go home, will you tell your people about me? About Earth? Of course, Zara said. It is my duty to report everything I learn. Why do you ask? Jake stared at the gems on his table, then at Zara's trusting face. He realized he was facing the biggest decision of his life. What he did next could affect not just his own future, but the future of an entire, peaceful civilization. Jake woke up to the sound of his radio crackling to life. It was barely dawn, but he could hear the voice of his supervisor, Dr. Rebecca Williams, coming through the static. His heart jumped into his throat as he realized he had forgotten to check in with the research station for 3 days. Jake, this is Rebecca. Please respond immediately. We haven't heard from you since Tuesday, and protocol requires daily check-ins. Are you experiencing equipment failure? Jake stumbled out of bed and rushed to the radio. The next room, he could see Zara still sleeping peacefully on the couch he had set up for her. Over the past week, she had become like a friend to him, and he had almost forgotten that he was supposed to be working alone out here. "Rebecca, this is Jake," he said into the radio, trying to sound normal. "Sorry about the missed check-ins. I've been having some equipment issues. Nothing major." "Equipment issues?" Rebecca's voice crackled back. "What kind of issues? Do you need a technician sent out?" No, Jake said quickly. "I've got it handled. Just some problems with the soil analysis equipment. I've been working on fixing it." There was a pause. "On the other end, Jake, you sound strange. Are you feeling all right? You've been out there alone for 2 weeks? Maybe it's time for a break." Jake's palms were sweating. Rebecca had been his supervisor for 3 years, and she knew him well enough to notice when something was off. "I'm fine, Rebecca, really. Just tired from working on the repairs." "All right," Rebecca said, but Jake could hear the concern in her voice. "Well, make sure you check in every day from now on." "And Jake, Dr. Peterson from the main lab wants to see your latest soil samples when you get back next week." "Next week?" Jake's voice cracked slightly. He had completely forgotten that. His research assignment was supposed to end soon. "Next Friday. You're scheduled to return to the main facility for debriefing and analysis of your findings. I'll be sending a helicopter to pick you up at 0800 hours. Jake's mind was racing. Next Friday was only 5 days away. There was no way Zara would have her ship repaired by then. And even if she did, what would happen when Rebecca arrived and found evidence of her stay? "Understood," Jake managed to say. "I'll be ready." After ending the radio call, Jake sat in his chair, staring at the wall. He could hear Zara stirring in the next room, and he knew she would be awake soon. How could he explain this to her? How could he tell her that in 5 days, people would be coming who might discover her secret? "Good morning, Jake," Zara said, appearing in the doorway. "You look worried. Is something wrong?" Jake forced a smile. "It's just work stuff." "How did you sleep?" "Well, thank you," Zara replied. "I was planning to work on my ship repairs today. Power crystal is almost ready, and I think I can fix the navigation system." "That's great," Jake said, though his stomach was churning. "How much longer do you think it will take?" Zara thought for a moment. "Perhaps another week, maybe 2. "The damage was more extensive than I first thought." Jake felt like he was going to be sick. "Zara, we need to talk about something important." They sat together at Jake's small kitchen table, and he explained about his supervisor and the scheduled pickup. Zara listened carefully, her violet eyes growing more concerned as she understood the situation. "So other humans will be coming here?" she asked. "Yes," Jake said, "and they'll want to know what I've been doing all this time. They'll search the lab, ask questions, look at all my equipment and samples, and if they find evidence of my presence." Jake ran his hands through his hair. "I don't know. Maybe nothing would happen. Maybe they'd just think it was interesting." "But Zara, I've been thinking about what you told me about your people, about how peaceful and trusting they are." "Yes. On Earth, when people discover something valuable, they don't always handle it well. There are people who would want to control your ability, maybe even force your people to produce gems for them." Zara's skin seemed to lose some of its glow. "But surely not all humans are like that." "No, not all," Jake said. "But enough of them are. And once the secret is out, it would be impossible to control what happens next. Your people could be in danger." Over the next few days, Jake watched Zara work on her ship repairs with growing anxiety. She was making good progress, but not fast enough. Meanwhile, he found himself looking at the growing collection of gems that had accumulated from her daily biological needs. Each bathroom visit produced thousands of dollars worth of perfect stones. The temptation to keep just a few was overwhelming. Jake had done some research on his computer and discovered that just one of the diamonds Zara had produced was worth more than his entire yearly salary. The emeralds were even more valuable. If he kept them, he could pay off his student loans, buy a house, maybe even retire early. But every time he looked at Zara's trusting face, he felt ashamed of even thinking about it. "Jake, you seem troubled," Zara observed on Wednesday evening. "Are you afraid of what will happen when your supervisor arrives?" Little Jake admitted. But I'm more worried about what might happen to you and your people if this gets out. You are a good friend, Zara said softly. Not many people would put the safety of strangers above their own interests. Jake felt his face flush. If only she knew about the thoughts he had been having about keeping some of the gems. I just want to do the right thing. What do you think the right thing is? Jake stared out the window at the desert landscape. I think the right thing is to protect your people, even if it means giving up the greatest scientific discovery in human history. Thursday morning, Jake made his decision. Spent the day helping Zara pack up any evidence of her stay. They carefully collected all the gems and put them in a bag. Jake's hands shook as he handled stones worth more than most people would see in a lifetime. Are you sure about this? Zara asked, seeing his hesitation. Jake looked at the bag of gems, then at Zara's concerned face.
Nice.
He said, though his voice was barely a whisper, I'm sure. As Thursday night fell, Jake realized that tomorrow would change everything. Either Zara would be gone and his secret would be safe, or Rebecca would arrive and discover the truth. Either way, his life would never be the same again. Friday morning came too fast. Jake had barely slept, tossing and turning as he worried about what the day would bring. He could hear Zara working on her ship outside, the soft humming sounds of alien technology mixing with the desert wind. Had been up all night, pushing herself to finish the repairs before his supervisor arrived. Jake checked his watch. It was 7:30 a.m. Rebecca would be here in 30 minutes, and Zara's ship still wasn't ready. His hands were shaking as he made coffee, spilling grounds all over the counter. Everything that could go wrong was about to go wrong, Jake. Zara called from outside. I need your help. Jake rushed out to find Zara standing beside her ship, which was now glowing with that familiar blue light. Is it working? He asked hopefully. Almost, Zara said, her face showing both excitement and worry. The power systems are online, but I need to test the navigation before I can leave safely. It will take at least another hour. Jake's heart sank. Zara, we don't have an hour. Rebecca will be here any minute.
Yes.
As if on cue, they heard the distant sound of helicopter blades cutting through the morning air. Both of them froze, staring at each other with panic in their eyes. Quick, Jake said. Get in the lab. I need to hide you until I can figure out what to do. They ran inside, and Jake led Zara to a storage room in the back of the lab. It was small and cramped, filled with extra equipment and supplies, but it was the only place Rebecca wouldn't normally look. Stay here no matter what happens, Jake told her. Don't come out until I tell you it's safe. Zara nodded, but Jake could see the fear in her violet eyes. What if she finds me? She won't, Jake said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. I promise. As the helicopter landed outside, kicking up clouds of sand and dust. Jake watched through the window as Rebecca climbed out, along with another man he didn't recognize. His supervisor was a tall woman with graying hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had been a good boss and a mentor to Jake, but right now she felt like his worst enemy. Jake, Rebecca called as she approached the lab.
Good to see ya.
This is Dr. Anderson from the geology department. We wanted to see your soil samples. Jake forced a smile and opened the door. Rebecca, Dr. Anderson. Welcome to my little desert home. Rebecca looked around the lab with interest. You've been busy out here. The place looks different somehow. Jake's pulse quickened. Different how? I don't know, Rebecca said, walking around the room. Just different. More lived in, maybe. Dr. Anderson was already examining Jake's equipment. These are impressive soil samples, he said. Very interesting mineral content. Where exactly did you find these? Various locations around the research area, Jake replied, trying to keep his voice steady. I've been doing a comprehensive survey, Rebecca continued, walking around the lab. And Jake noticed she was paying attention to details he had never worried about before. The extra coffee cup in the sink. The blanket folded on the couch. The fact that there seemed to be more food containers in the trash than one person would normally use. Jake, Rebecca said suddenly, have you been having visitors out here? Visitors. Jake tried to laugh. Who would visit me in the middle of the desert? I don't know, Rebecca said, but her tone suggested she wasn't buying his casual response. It just seems like there are signs of more than one person living here. Jake felt sweat beading on his forehead. I've just been Eating more lately. Desert air makes you hungry. Dr. Anderson had moved to Jake's workbench, where some of Jake's analysis equipment was still set up. "What were you analyzing with this microscope?" he asked. Jake's blood ran cold. He had forgotten to clean the microscope after examining Zara's gems. "Just ... mineral samples, like I said." Dr. Anderson peered into the microscope. "Interesting. The slide is clean, but there are some unusual residue patterns here. Almost like you were looking at crystalline structures." "That's right," Jake said quickly. "I found some interesting crystal formations in the soil." Becca was now standing by Jake's desk looking at some papers. "Jake, what's this?" She asked, holding up a sketch he had made of Zara's translation device. Jake's heart nearly stopped. It's just a design idea. It's for a new type of communication device. I was bored and started doodling." "It's very detailed for a doodle," Rebecca observed. "And these symbols along the edge, they don't look like any language I've seen." Before Jake could respond, Dr. Anderson made a discovery that changed everything. "Jake," he said, his voice filled with excitement, "you need to see this." Jake walked over to find Dr. Anderson holding a small emerald that had somehow gotten stuck under some papers on the workbench. It was one of Zara's gems, and it was perfect and beautiful and completely impossible to explain. "Where did this come from?" Dr. Anderson asked, his eyes wide with amazement. Jake stared at the gem, his mind completely blank. How could he explain this? What possible story could he tell? Double quotes. Jake started, then stopped. And he could feel both Rebecca and Dr. Anderson staring at him. "Jake," Rebecca said softly, "I think you need to tell us what's really been going on out here." Just then, they heard a soft sound from the back of the lab. It was barely audible, but Jake knew exactly what it was. Zara had accidentally knocked something over in the storage room. Rebecca's head snapped toward the sound. What was that? "Probably just the wind," Jake said desperately. "The building makes weird noises sometimes." But Rebecca was already walking toward the back of the lab. It sounded like it came from the storage room. Jake knew he had seconds to make a choice that would change everything. He could let Rebecca discover Zara, and then try to explain the impossible. Or he could do something to stop her, to protect his friend and her people, even if it meant destroying his own career. "Rebecca, wait," Jake said, stepping in front of her. "There's something I need to tell you." Rebecca stopped and looked at him. "What is it, Jake?" Jake took a deep breath, in that moment looking at Rebecca's concerned face. And thinking about Zara hiding in the storage room, he knew what he had to do. "The truth is," Jake said, "I've been working on something secret, something that could be dangerous if it gets out. But I can't tell you what it is. I'm sorry." Rebecca stared at him for a long moment. "Jake, you're scaring me." What's going on? Before Jake could answer, they heard the sound of Zara's ship powering up outside. The blue glow was visible through the windows, and the humming sound was getting louder. "What in the world ... Dr. Anderson said, rushing to the window. Jake closed his eyes. It was over. There was no way to hide the truth now. But maybe, just maybe, he could still protect Zara and her people. "That," Jake said quietly, "is my friend going home."